Hey everyone, I'm Cappy and you're watching Beyond the Plate, but just a taste. If you'd like to hear this podcast episode in its entirety, you can do so on all major podcast platforms. As for me, I'm a chef by trade and hospitality professional. These days, I head up Rachel Ray's culinary operations and co-founded her cooking and kids charity called Yummo. 5 years ago, I had the idea to put together a podcast where we sit down with the world's culinary elite and explore their journey into the food industry and the social impact they have made in their community, how they give back, hence the name Beyond the Plate. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you listened before, we're so glad you're back. We're bringing you a little taste of our full audio episodes here and hope it inspires you to cook or, like the chefs we feature, make a difference in your community. Reminder, the entire conversation is on our podcast Beyond the Plate. On to this week's episode. I know you know this, but the podcast celebrates social impact with every guest. Learning how they all do it keeps us all inspired. Whoever the chef or bartender we speak with in whatever cause or organization, they work with. So I wanted to let you, kind of just give you the floor and share about, Southern Smoke.
Southern Smoke started in 2015. Originally, my wife tells me to go shorter on this. But we were doing like dinners to raise money for scholarships to send kids to culinary school. And, Antonio, the person that
was that the Off the Wall series?
Off the Wall. It was fun. Because we just pull people off the wall. Because we had, Underbelly had not only did we have like the list of places to go eat at, but each one of those places was on the wall. They had a photo. So we had 50 photos as you walked in. And it was our map of the city. And so we'd just be like, all right, we're going to do British Indian. And it'd be like, okay, London Sizzler and Richard Knight, who owns Feast, which is a crazy British restaurant. And that's a British curry house. And we'll each have them do a course. And then we'll do a course that was inspired by them. And then it would be like Chinese. And then it'd be like, okay, we're going to have dim sum. We're going to have a Chinese food truck. And then we're going to have this Szechuan restaurant come in. And so they would all do a course and we would do a course. And the money that we raised would go to put somebody through culinary school. And Antonio, who I talked about earlier at Catalan, he was working at a wine shop. And so he would come in and be our guest som. Because Matthew, who was my general manager, been with me forever, and Som, I wanted him to be at home on Sundays with his family because we were closed. Didn't want to make him work an extra day. But he always came in anyway. And we raised enough money to put somebody through school. And then Antonio asked me one night, he came in, I was writing menus for the next day. And he was like, hey, man, you going to do those dinners again? I was like, I don't know, man. What do you want? You want to? Like, let's do it. He said, well, can we do a dinner to raise money for MS? And I was like, yeah, but why? And he's like, well, I was diagnosed with MS this week. And I was like, whoa, sit down, bro. Let's have a conversation. You all right? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I mean, I caught it at a good time. And, he was kind of diagnosed late in life. And so I said, well, yeah, but a dinner again, like we're doing these dinners and we're raising like 5,000, that's not, we're not getting anywhere. He's like, the money's not for me, man. I was like, all right, but like, we need to make sure that we can find a cure. Like there isn't one, like this isn't new. Like we got to figure it out. So, so let me ponder how we're going to do this. He's like, all right. And so I called Aaron Franklin, Rodney Scott, and Sean Brock. And I was like, do you guys want to do a dinner? And we'll do it out in the back parking lot. Maybe we get 300 people instead of the 100 or 150, whatever. And they said yes. And then I went to the mayor's department of special events because we were kind of getting pushed around by somebody with sidewalk encroachment. So I was like, can we just block off the sidewalks? My wife and I were there. And they said, what are you doing? I told them, no, here's our stage. We're going to block off all the streets around you. We're going to give you the infrastructure, bathrooms, power, this, that. And I was like, what the fuck just happened, Lindsay? And she's like, we're throwing a festival, it sounds like. And I was like, I got to tell the guys this. And so I called them all. I was like, hey, man, you know that 250, 300, it's going to be more like 1,000, maybe 1,200. And they're all like, yeah, no problems, man, whatever. All right. And so that first year I wanted to raise $100,000 and we raised $181,000. And then year 2, we got more chefs out, more music, more bands, and we raised $284,000. So we did 2 years, we raised we donated almost $500,000 to the MS Society. Largest third-party fundraiser in 5 states in our region. And so it made a difference. And then Hurricane Harvey happened. We were about a month out from the festival, and Hurricane Harvey came through, and it really devastated the city of Houston. And there was a lot of funds going on. There was the Mayor's Fund. There was J.J. Watt's Fund. There was the Red Cross, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, but not a penny would ever go into the hands of anybody in the food and beverage industry. No drive-through workers, no farmers, no people delivering milk, nobody. It wasn't going to happen. It all get put into infrastructure, which is great too. So we decided, I looked at Lindsay, I said, we can't do this for the MS Society this year. We have to take care of our industry. And little did we know that our 501c3 that we finally gotten, we could write checks to people. And so we put together a way that people could apply, and then it would go through a application process, a verifying committee, and then it would go into an awards committee, none of which I was privy to. Still not to this day. I don't know who applies. I don't know who gets funded. And we took on 250 applications, and then through once it finally came down to it, we funded 139 families $500,000. And so at that point, I looked at Lindsay and I said, we have to do this for forever, right? We can always do something for MS, but MS has got, they got bike races, they got everything. Like, they got a lot of stuff that's going to help with them. And Antonio's always going to be our person, but we'll always do something for the foundation, but we got to figure out our industry, because there is not a safety net for our industry. And we had one employee in January of 2020. And we hired our second employee February 1st of 2020. And then middle of March comes around. I would say middle of April happens, and I go back to that 250 applications that we took in. Middle of April, we had 35,000 applications in nationally. And so we ended up hiring 40 people that were furloughed or laid off, restaurant managers, cooks, waiters, bartenders, whatever, to become caseworkers. And,
wow.
What
do you mean by
so they would basically we basically would go through a triage system, if you would. Like, if someone needed $200 to pay their cell phone, okay, well, you're back. We're going to push that back a little bit because this person doesn't have food to put on their table for their kids, can't put their kids into the hospital, or they're about to lose their home, or whatever it may be.
So these 40 people were kind of fielding all of these.
And so it would go through that system. We would, go through this whole long kind of process. And we ended up that year, granting out over $6 million in 2020. Yeah. It was insane. And now we're at 13 full-time employees, and have granted out over $10.4 million to folks in crisis. But the thing that we started working on in 2018 is one of the things that I think one of the reasons why I made the decisions that I have lately. I wanted to talk about mental health. I wanted mental health to be kind of a focus. We just lost Anthony Bourdain, and we lost some other friends. And I feel like if there was a system that we wouldn't have to have these kind of losses. If we could stand up and say, I'm not good, man. Like, I'll stand with anybody and say that. Like, it's not a point in life where you're always great, right? There's things that happen in life that make things darker nights or tougher days. And so the conversation just became, how do we fix it? And so we pushed really hard. And actually in June of 2020, We worked with Mental Health America and the University of Houston, and we were able to provide free mental health care to anybody in the food and beverage industry and their children in the state of Texas. And it was really necessary. And it's still very necessary. And since then, this is why I made the decision I did, because I said to our team, by 2028, we need to have free mental health care in every state in the country. I want anybody in all 50 states that's working in the food and beverage industry and their kids to be able to have access to free mental health care, and a program that's set up. And so we fund every state for sure. But we have programs now set up in Texas, Louisiana, California, Illinois, Pennsylvania, going into New York, Connecticut, and then we have 6 more states on track this year.
Wow.
So,
dude, that's amazing.
Once we get about halfway through that, I want to go at legal. I want young chefs and restaurateurs to understand what lease negotiations look like, partnership agreements, immigration law, tax attorneys. Anytime somebody needs an attorney, I want somebody to be looking at it for them. Because you hear it all the time. Like, man, that restaurant was really busy. What happened? They didn't look at all the fine print. Because you know who did look at it? The landlord. They had an attorney look at it. And you talk to young restaurant owners that want to open something and like, what's your budget look like? And they're like, well, I got money for food. I got money for training. I got money for interiors. I got money for this. And then I was like, what about attorneys? And they're like, what? Like, dude, come on. Like, that has to be a part of your budget. So, and that's such a hard thing to afford. So
wild.
I want to make sure that like legal counsel was there for everybody at affordable or if no cost. So I had like 1,000 attorneys sitting there. And I was like, look, and they wanted to hear the story. And I told them all the story. And I was like, look, now I'm going to challenge all y'all. And this is what I want. And my executive director, Lindsay, and myself, each had like 30, 40 people standing in front of us just throwing business cards at us. Like, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. Because lawyers need to do pro bono work anyway. So boy, might as well take it. You know, the way our mental health program is that we set it up with universities that need actual hours for their students to graduate.
So that program with University of Houston, is that something you kind of collaborated with and started a program together? And I guess that's my first question. And my follow-up is, in these other states you mentioned, is that using that University of Houston program, or are you partnering with other universities?
We partner with other universities because you have to go state by state.
Using that, I'm calling it
using that thought
program,
process. Yeah. And so Chicago has really, we opened that up 6 months ago. And it is full tilt. Everybody's using it. It's and even like the therapists and the people that are doing the work are like, this is the most amazing program we've ever seen. This works. And it's like, that's great because it's, you know, it's Latin speaking. It's all languages spoken. It's like everybody, like you say, like, look, man, you can talk to somebody and they're like, yee, you know, and it's at their own time, you know, and that's the beauty of it because one lost life is too many. And so if we can help make that change, that's the goal.
100%. I actually reached out to Antonio.
Did you?
And yeah, because I was, you know, curious. I was like, Chris is a humble guy. Let's see what some real juicy stuff is. But you know, he mentioned similarly, and I thought it was amazing. He was like, I actually just asked Chris, you know, for one of those off the wall dinners to raise a little money, and Chris looked at me and said, no. We're going to raise a lot of money. I was like, well, that sounds very on brand for,
I do a little,
Chris. He
do a lot.
Do things small. Yeah. Yeah. But then he, you know, it was interesting at the end of the conversation and I had like nothing to say after. I mean, that in a good way, because it was pretty amazing. He said, you know, what they're doing now helps the whole restaurant community. He goes, it's amazing that something that started as a big negative turned out to be a big positive for so many people.
It's pretty awesome.
It's really nice. Yeah. So I've never really asked our guests this because it's kind of the purpose of the podcast, but you're a great person to give advice on the topic. How would you suggest cooks, chefs, managers, anyone in the biz get involved in their community? Let's just say, just in general.
You know, I had this question posed to me a while back, right? And it doesn't have to be Southern Smoke related, right? I prefer it if it does, because that's our biggest thing is awareness. Because, you know, once I get the dishwashers in Montana to understand that we're here, I feel like we're on our path, right? That we're doing it right, because we're just getting people aware. But taking charge in something in your own community and doing something, understanding that you may not know where you're going, right? When we started this, I had no idea. But if you're not willing to stand at the edge of the water and smash your foot into the still lake, the wave will never start. And understanding that, like, you don't know where it's going to go, but if you're not going to try, it's definitely not going to happen. And so find something that you're severely passionate about and lay it all on there. Because, you know what, as restaurant folks, you get asked to do everything under the sun for everybody else. Maybe ask them to do something for you, right? It's just like understanding that, like, you've made enough people reservations, you've cooked for enough people, man, they're going to believe in the same things you believe in, and they're going to try and help. And that's good. That's what you need. But you have to be passionate and, like, understand that, like, you may not know today what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, I didn't know when Antonio asked me that. Like, hey, can we do a dinner? Well, look, we're $10.5 million into it now in 7 years. And I don't see it stopping.
It's incredible.
I mean, I want 100 million. Like, I want to make sure that everybody's taken care of, you know, and
then you'll get it.
And that's the, you know, now you can see once the ball starts rolling, it starts to get faster for sure. And so just understand, like, be ready and just do it. Start a dinner. Then it progresses. Someone's going to, hey, I know somebody. Hey, I know somebody. Hey, I know somebody. And take all those conversations. Absolutely. Like, how can I progress what I want? You know, whether it be through mental health or whether it be through, like, I don't know, saving a restaurant or saving something. Like, I mean, originally, I'll be honest with you, when we started the Off the Wall dinner series, it was either going to go, this is crazy, where it could have gone. I looked at Lindsay and I said, I want to put somebody through culinary school, or I want to save Battleship Texas. Well, that ship sailed literally 50 years sitting in a harbor. It finally sailed out to someplace else. And we didn't save nothing on it. So, like, it could have been like trying to save a ship that really, I don't know, should be parts or history, or I don't know. But it turned into something that was, because of Antonio, became something bigger and more powerful. And now is, you know, taking care of people across the country. It's special.
Thanks for watching and listening to Beyond the Plate. We hope you enjoyed a little taste of this episode. If you'd like to hear this podcast episode in its entirety, you can do so on all major podcast platforms. I'm Cappy, and remember, there are never too many cooks in the kitchen.